going to be tying up a really nice emerger pattern here. It's a soft tackle one. I'm using some nano silk, gray colored 16 hook TroutFly hook here. I'm just going to go ahead and take my thread back to where we want to start the abdomen on the fly. Which will be about where the barb of that hook is. So it's a good reference point. My nano silk is very irritating. Good and the bad. So what I want is when my thread is dangling, I want it to dangle right at the back of where that hook barb is. And that's going to be our reference point. So that's going to work out just fine. So that kind of just marks for me where I want the abdomen to start. And I just take a few thread wraps forward. So for the tail, we're going to use this flourofibre. It's just a really nice, kind of a pearl colored. And I'm not too concerned about length here, because we are going to trim it at the very end. So I'm just going to go ahead and get that situated there on the top of my hook. And I'm going to just take a wrap or two forward to kind of lock that in place. I'm going to take a wrap or two back. I'm going to take those fibers that were going towards the eye and I'm going to fold those over to the back as well. And that's going to give us a nice kind of sparse tail. By doubling it over like we just did, it'll also make it a lot more durable. Okay. Alright, so keeping with the theme of the gray, I'm going to use some gray squirrel dubbing for part of our abdomen here. We're going to get that started on our thread here just with our hands. And I got way too much, so that's alright. We'll just cut it off. You notice I've left a little bit of thread without dubbing on it. And that's actually going to help me kind of make sure that I travel back to the very back here. And that we get a wrap or two of this dubbing. One thing that you'll want to do with this particular pattern, once you've got that first somewhat decent turn there on the back, is we're going to lift up these tails and we're going to take a wrap around and behind them. What that's going to do is help us get those propped up the way that we want them. From there, I'm just going to kind of work my way up the body with the dubbing that we have here. Some of it's floating away. Good for you. Like the squirrel dubbing, you can use beaver. Just a little bit more, buggy is the word that I usually end up using. That's probably going to do me good, and I'm just going to go ahead and pull off the rest of that. Let's go ahead and make sure we've got that secured down. So for the wing, we're actually going to go right back to that flourofibre that we used for the tail. Go ahead and tie that in right on the top of the shank of the hook right here. Don't you spin on me. I do want to keep that on the top. So I'll be very intentional here. And wrap backwards a little bit. Then I'm going to take that just like we did with the tail. I'm going to fold it over the center of the top. And that should be pretty good. I don't think that's going anywhere. We're going to cut this off about the length of the body of the fly. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab those fibers there. Look at where my body is ending. Make that cut. So we've got a nice wing going for us here. And we're going to tie in a gray hen saddle hackle. It's going to look a little bit like this. It's going to make a really nice soft hackle. I've already prepared one of the feathers here. You can see I've stripped off the bottom and all the fuzzy stuff. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pinch near the top of this. I'm going to wet my fingers improperly. And I want each side to be fairly even. And then I'm going to want this end to be very kind of pulled together. So get it wet, stroke it so that all of those fibers go together, because we're going to make a cut right there, and that creates a nice little triangle for us to use as a tie-in point for this soft hackle. So that is our tie-in point with our little triangle. I'm going to go ahead and just set it on top. Let's spin our thread counterclockwise so we're not fighting it. It'll cause that thread to jump backwards instead of up towards the eye. See how that's jumping up towards the eye? That's not what it's supposed to do. And if you just spin your bobbin counterclockwise, in theory, it will take care of that problem for me. There we go. So I'm going to just take a few wraps over that tie-in point just to make sure that my soft hackle here is very nice and secure. So I'm going to tie this kind of just right up to the eye. They were short enough, I don't need to trim them off. And then I'm going to kind of, you see me turn my vise a lot because I want to make sure that I have a pretty consistent pathway for this hackle to follow. If you have like a huge downhill grade or bumps or whatever you might have, your soft hackle is not going to lay nearly as well as what you're going to want. I'm going to bring my thread forward to where I want to tie this off. I'm actually going to put a tiny little bit of wax on my thread here because it will help me just, hold that thing down, tie it down when the time comes. So we'll just go ahead and I'm going to shorten my thread here just a little bit. I'm going to reach over and grab a set of hackle pliers here, and we're just going to take our hen saddle feather and attach it to this. There we go. Our hackle plier. Once I've got that, I'm going to pull up on it, really wetting my fingers because I want to stroke these fibers backwards, back towards the bend of the hook. So if you hold it up nice and straight and then just pull on those fibers, they're going to go a little bit backwards. So we're going to take our first wrap right up close to the abdomen there. And there are some escapees, and that's fine. Every time I go to the top here, I'm going to stroke these fibers as well as the fibers I've already put on backwards, just to help get that backwards soft hackle that we're looking for. I'm not going to take too many wraps of this soft hackle, but maybe a couple more. This soft hackle just creates some really nice action in the water. It's probably about where I want to be, so I'm going to just go ahead and throw my thread over the top of that hackle feather or hen saddle. Maybe put a wrap in front of it as well. From there, I'm just going to release my hackle pliers. That should be secure. I'm going to come in as close as I can to where that stem is tied in. Just like that. I'm going to use the tiniest little bit of dubbing here right in front of that soft hackle. I'm going to want that to be, it's going to build up a kind of a nice thorax for us here. And I'm going to stroke everything a little bit backwards. Yes, I said everything. I have a few that will not mind. And once I've got that, we'll go ahead and give ourselves a little bit of extra thread. I'm going to grab my whip finisher. And we'll just do a couple of turn whip finishes here. It's going to have a tiny little head. Don't worry about building it up too much, but if you do have build up, you want it towards the bend of the hook. You want it going up in a slope towards, from the eye up towards the thorax there. Pretty good there. So I love the back end of my web finisher. It's got a cutting tool. Makes it really easy to get that thread cut nice and close, just like that. I used to use scissors a lot, but that tool has been incredibly helpful. The last thing that I will do with this is I'm going to go ahead and grab a dubbing brush. And not a lot of brushing, but I'm going to try to tease out a little bit from the body and have it kind of mix in a little bit with that flourofibre wing that we put in. Again, I'm not going to do nearly as much as I often will do like that, but it does blend in with that flourofibre very nicely. And there you have it. There's the gray soft hackle emerger pattern. Wonderful pattern. I've tied this one up in a 16. You'll want to tie them up in 18s, 20, 22s. I have a harder time tying them that small down to a 22. I'm getting a little bit older, and I can't see very well. So even if I can tie it, I have a hard time out on the river getting it on my tippet when I'm fishing. So anyway, throw a hook in your vise, give this one a shot. You won't be disappointed.